What's like the one problem that if I solved it would make the biggest impact, aka make me the most money?
I would at least double my money.
At different levels is going to open up different opportunity, right?
I'm going to get it tattooed on my chest. Marketing efficiency ratio.
I don't need more than a 1 or 2x is because
we got 1 to 4 MER, well, 1 to 7 MER, 1 to 10, you know? And I'm like, what's MER?
I was going to ask the same thing.
If you were to spend $500,000 in the marketplace to build your business, what would you expect in return?
You want to be pre-revenue, because if you're pre-revenue, like the promise is still out there that you could have this big return. You could get a 5x, 10x, 20x.
And that's where we come in. And I think that we've built out a system where it's like,
so you do the math on it, they're actually losing money hand over fist, and the faster they spend, the faster they're losing money.
This 10% investment will protect the 90.
So you just have to know the game that you're playing to figure out what those numbers are for you. So,
and I feel like the industry has just been broken because everybody has just,
it doesn't matter what the number is, like you have to know what the number is for your business. If you don't, that's a like big problem, because you're burning money, you're lighting it on fire.
You need to have somebody who's going to be hired 100% just to watch over that investment.
What would need to happen for me to be stoked 3, 6, 12 months later that I made that investment?
Just make sure you know exactly what your goal is and how you're going to measure success.
I spent the first half of 2024 on the wrong problem.
Fired.
You know, when I had that $300K to invest in the business and it didn't go the way I want, like what would I do differently?
On our next podcast, we will be talking about e-brakes in business. Do you need one? And how do you pull it when is the right time?
How does your machine, how does your business generate that return? You got to understand theory of constraints and how business works.
You're asking for an old way RFP or agency model, and you're going to fail.
We're spending all this time trying to like improve our social media, but maybe that's not the issue. Maybe the issue is actually how we engage people in conversation, like the stuff that we talk about on this show.
Like to seize the process. But what happens if they're too busy and they're just like all over the place?
Then you're going to fail. Right into it, dude. You just, and we didn't even talk about Super Bowl. You just came back from entertaining the folks, but what do we got today? What do we want to dive into in the world?
Well, yeah, no, we did get back from Super Bowl. It was it was crazy, man. Like really like great opportunity to be with people. You know, I think things that we were doing in Super Bowl, basically like throwing parties. Like there's so much going around Super Bowl nowadays. Like the amount of money from what happens at like, everyone knows there's a lot of cash that floats around like halftime show. But when you leave halftime show or trying to get to halftime show, like $15,000 for a car escort from the police for if you want to take your, you know, when those cars zoom by you, you know, on the highway and they have that like 2 lanes and you're stuck. Like they've got the express lane, $15,000 for a car escort, which I didn't know, which is kind of cool. To like the parties, man, like the parties, like just, it's silly how much money, like people are spending $250,000 for like 45 minutes to an hour for someone just to show up to $1 million parties. Like it's crazy, like how much is going on.
That's wild.
And then we don't even understand the impact of what's going to be happening with World Cup. I mean, that's like 7 times per city and people have no clue what's coming. So people are like just
totally
like behind the 8 ball of like planning for World Cup right now. And that's kind of like, we kind of picked up on that. But people are buying yachts.
Any of these like big events, especially like Super Bowl, World Cup, there's so much opportunity because the money is already flowing, which I think is interesting. And I think more important than that, like the attention is flowing. There's a lot of attention. There's a lot of focus, like literally in the physical vicinity of you know, the San Francisco Bay Area and like around the stadium, everything that's going on there, or these different venues for World Cup. But the attention is also flowing digitally. So
go from halftime show to, you know, like Vision Check, you know, like this concept of, you know, what we do in the marketplace, how we do it in the marketplace. I think there's brands, right? I mean, you talk about any type of investment. What is the general outcome that you want? You put an input in, which is usually time, cash, and resources. and then you get X desired outputs, right? And if you're just throwing money at something, you're going to just get whatever money is going to be thrown back at you, right? And this is the whole predictable versus unpredictable revenue streams.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, do you have to run and hustle and sprint to make up for lost time and bad decisions? Or do you make executable, predictable decisions up front and then tweak with a team who stays on top of it during the process? And we just have a lot of clients that, all kind of come with like a similar problem. Like, we have so much money that we need to get X amount of result. And, we got 1 to 4 MER, well, 1 to 7 MER, 1 to 10, and I'm like, what's MER?
I was going to ask the same thing.
I'm like, are they making up new words for bullshit? Like, I'm like, we just want to return our investment.
I'm so curious what's MER. Like, did you find out?
It's like,
what is MER?
It's like you put $1 in, you get $4 out, right? That's a 1
that was
to 4
like
MER.
ROI, return on investment, but managed expected return?
Marketing exchange ratio. Return.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Let's see.
Make up your own
MER.
language. Let's make our own language. We'll make our own religion. We'll just whatever. Yeah.
It is.
It sounds important.
Measures marketing success and the marketing efficiency ratio.
Marketing efficiency ratio. Okay, I have heard this term before. Yes.
I'm going to get it tattooed on my chest. Marketing efficiency ratio.
Yeah.
And, so it's how do you get a calculated risk going, right? Like, how do you know exactly how much to put in and how much you're going to expect out? And the old way in the model has always been to look at what you're doing from like a capital expense and a resources expense, and is that going to produce? So I don't know, like, let me ask you, like, if you were to spend $500,000 in the marketplace to build your business, what would you expect in return?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what I'm building and what the purpose of that investment vehicle is. So if I'm talking about specifically into my business.
Yeah.
You
got $500,000 to spend to like bring on. How much return do you want? Do you want $5 million in return? Do you want $2 million in return? Do you want $550,000 return?
Yeah, no, that's great. I want more than I'm going to get in the market. So it's like, okay, if I know I can get 10% in the market, I'm going to want more than that because I should be able to get 200, 300, 400 times. But I tend to look at those kind of things when we have resources and budget. Yeah, I want a bigger return I can get in the market, and at different levels is going to open up different opportunity, right? Like there are certain things that you can invest into with 500 grand that are going to be different than what you can when you've got 10 grand to invest, that are going to be different than when you have 50 million to invest. That's why, just look at venture capital, Silicon Valley, how it operates. Most of those companies fundamentally operate differently than your local restaurant chef-owned business, because we can't afford to run at a deficit, at a loss, and not make money. There's this funny meme in a show, Silicon Valley, where this company is, it's a bunch of guys in a house that are incubating this company, and they're trying to come up with this idea, and this big famous bigwig billionaire investor comes in, and they've got their whiteboard up, and they're talking about how we're trying to create revenue, and it's kind of a joke, but it tongue in cheek. But the billionaire investor guy goes, revenue. He's like, no, like we don't want revenue. You want to be pre-revenue, because if you're pre-revenue, like the promise is still out there that you could have this big return. You could get a 5x, 10x, 20x. But the second you're in revenue, like you're like they put you in a whole different bucket. So I think, the amount matters. Back to your question of 500K, the amount matters. If it's 500K, certainly more than is going to be in the market. And then I'm going to look at, with the current problems that I have in my business, because there's always going to be some sort of problem, what's the one problem that if I solved it would make the biggest impact, aka make me the most money? And I would get really crystal clear on what that problem is, and then compare that with the resources I have, because then that 500K is going to tell me, okay, what are the different ways or strategies that I could take to solve that problem and turn my 500K into 5 million.
You said 500 million? Or you
Yeah,
said
sure. Why
5
not?
million?
Let's go 500 million. I
Well,
said 500K to 5. And again,
that's
because
a Cinderella story. Like,
yeah, you asked me the number, and I know my answer is kind of a little bit of a cop out, but like the only answer I'd have is that I would want more than I would get out of the market, but the return I'm looking at really depends on, one, the problem I'm trying to solve, and two, the strategy that I'm going to implement to solve that problem. Because then I'm going to set up specific metrics or like measurements around like, okay, great. Let's say, for example, we were going to put that into staff. Like, okay, hey, this 500K is going to allow us to hire these particular people. I'm going to be able to hire a CMO, a chief marketing officer.
so I think that's it. Those are different expenses. Those are something like this is like a marketing fund, right? So when you think about
Yeah.
like that, I agree with that. So
Yep.
like, let's say if I were to look at, putting 500 in, I would want to 1 to 2 that. I would at least double my money, right?
Totally.
Because
yeah.
I could do 10% in the marketplace if I played it somewhat safe, but I can do that by myself from my pillowcase, right? That's a 10% play. Now,
Got it. Yeah. Sorry.
with a little
I
bit
didn't
of work,
understand the question. Yeah. So like on paid ads, I've got a pretty solid kind of rubric on that. So if you're running any kind of media to generate customer acquisition, if you're in a business that has really low cost of goods sold, so any kind of digital delivery, coaching, info, like low cost, I'll go up to like 40-50% of revenue to acquire a customer. So if I make $100 per ticket sale, I'll spend 40 to 50 to make that 100. So you're talking a 2x, right? If you've got higher costs because you have physical hard costs, you're in physical product, labor, cost of delivery is high, those kind of things, you then kind of start squeaking down more towards to 15 to 25% for customer acquisition costs. So I'll take, $100 of my budget and I'll allocate 25% of that towards acquisition. But again, it gets to it depends on what the strategy is what's going to tell me where, like, what kind of return I would want to get. Where maybe with an individual, yeah, I'm looking for a 10x return, where with paid media, that's something that has infinite scale. I don't need as big of a return percentage wise, but it needs to be at least a certain amount. And the reason I don't need I don't need more than a 1 or 2x is because if it works, I can just spend more money, as long as there's enough inventory out there, enough attention out there for me to buy, I'll scoop up all of it. I've got a buddy who's done that really well.
What's the number on ads then? Like, what's the standard that you would put if you're running ads?
On digital, it'd be like a 2x.
Okay.
And on physical product, it might be break even or less. It depends on the business model and the company. I've got a client that we worked with for years. They're a $2.5 billion a year publishing company, info, really high margins. And they would never made money on ads. And it was actually the thing that allowed them to get to a couple $2 billion in revenue, because they would pay $250 to $300 to acquire a customer that would pay them $50. So you do the math on it, they're actually losing money hand over fist, and the faster they spend, the faster they're losing money. But their business model was get buyers, people to buy the product, and they're banking that eventually they're going to buy a $2,500 thing or a $500 thing, and they were very profitable at that. It's the same bet that Amazon made, that Jeff Bezos made, when he was like, I'm going to give next day shipping free, it's going to be included. Everyone's like, you're crazy. The math doesn't math. You're going to lose money, which was true. But he was betting on, yeah, but if I own all of e-commerce, then I'm going to win because of the scale game. So you just have to know the game that you're playing to figure out what those numbers are for you. So there's not a set number. You have to sit down and do the math and look at your business model of where you make your money. Do you have to make it on the front end? If you do, then you need more return. You need a 1 or 2 or 3x return on your ad spend. But if you have any kind of recurring model, subscription model, ascension model where you can make more off that customer, I mean, I can tell you, like, Starbucks knows exactly how much they can afford to give away to get somebody to become a Starbucks customer, because as soon as they do, they know how much they're going to spend every month, every year with them for the next 20 years. Target knows the same thing. There's a pretty infamous story about Target where, we know retargeting marketing, where you go, someone just talks about a product and all of a sudden it starts showing up in your feed. You start getting all these ads for those products, right? Well, before that ever happened on digital, like Target knows how to do this and has been doing this for a long time. It's why they've had you put your phone number in when, to get the deals and things at grocery stores, because they were tracking your purchases. And Target figured out, based on buying behavior, they could tell with a high degree of certainty if a woman was pregnant or not, based upon the things that she was purchasing. And they knew that if we could get someone to be a Target customer early in her pregnancy, we're not just going to get like all of those purchases that you make during that time frame, but all of the purchases they're going to make forever. So they know this. They send out coupons and things when they would know someone was probably in that stage to try to just get them into the store. So this dad goes out to his mailbox. His 16-year-old daughter gets a Target pamphlet full of coupons, all for baby stuff. Formula, diapers, you name it. Dad calls Target, pissed off.
I was
Why
so
in
bad.
Hell are you sending
I
this
couldn't
stuff
believe
to
it. I was so mad when I found that envelope.
And then, they're like, we're so sorry, sir. We'll take you off our list, whatever. And then 4 weeks later, he calls him back and he goes, how did you know? Because he didn't even know yet that his daughter was pregnant and she was pregnant, and they knew. So what do they do now? Now they do the same thing, but they'll like add in like a barbecue coupon or something else to kind of disguise it. But the moral of the story is...
A free bag of charcoal for dad. They'll be like, here's a free bag of charcoal for your upset father and a six-pack of beer.
Some Modelo's. Stay thirsty, my friend. But yeah, it's all that to say, it depends on the model. There are different rubrics. So you really got to know your numbers. You got to know your business model. But to your point, regardless of it doesn't matter what the number is, like you have to know what the number is for your business. If you don't, that's a big problem, because you're burning money, you're lighting it on fire.
And I think it's interesting because you brought up some great examples, but the element of surprise is seeing something not work and having to go in a new direction. Like just talking to a client today, like we all sound the same selling stuff and you sound just like everybody else, or you sound like, you hear this all the time. Like, what makes you different? And, it's the element of surprise. Either you're certain or you're going to potentially be surprised with whoever you hire for whatever service or outcome that you expected, right? There's always the shiny new syndrome, like the shiny new toy syndrome. Like they're better over there because they're nicer. And then they disappear, like after you get them on the board. But so everything you just said makes a lot of sense. Like there's understand your business model, understand what you think, but then you have to give it to a shepherd or a steward to actually run that program. And that's where we come in. And I think that we've built out a system where it's like, what is the insurance policy now? Like, how do you get so that's like with our company, that's what we really focus on. Like, we just want to have some kind of insurance policy that says this 10% investment will protect the 90, because you're going to still always be at the table in ads or couponing or whatever your model is. You're going to be sitting at the table having to make a decision, and you're going to have to decide how much money do you have to get that desired result. Right. And then it's how do you de-risk it? Like I can come with a ton of great ideas, and I feel like the industry has just been broken because everybody has just kind of resorted to, let me send you a really nice proposal. Let me put the happy smiley guy on you. And the sales team, she's amazing. She's going to get you sold in. And then we're going to give you to our grumbly little dev crew and everyone else who's going to do the execution. And they kill your brand. They kill your investment. So how do you protect against that? Like where does that insurance policy exist these days?
Yeah, no, it's, as the owner entrepreneur of your own business, you're the one who has to write that policy, because otherwise you're just reacting to what, agencies, vendors, PR companies, social media
So you're
managers,
saying the
freelancers.
CEO or the owner or the operator responsible for that needs to oversee that decision,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Because you can't make that decision. To your point, like if I don't have a way of knowing, okay, I'm gonna invest this money into this agency, this marketing, whatever. I have to, before I do that, know what what would need to happen for me to be stoked 3, 6, 12 months later that I made that investment. And what most operators do is they go, I get a return. And that's not enough detail. Like, that's not going to work. How, okay, you as the owner operator have to know how does your machine, how does your business generate that return? It turns into what first? It turns into opportunities. What do those opportunities look like? Do those look like people who call your restaurant? Does that look like people who book a tasting? Does that look like people who, subscribe on a trial for your meal delivery service? Like, what does that look like? And then what are the steps in the pipeline all through, so that you can then go to that company and hold them accountable for, like, hey, we need your help with these two parts in our pipeline, because if you can help us with these two parts in our pipeline, we get more strangers to turn into people that pay us money. And I know the math on all that. When we just
So
advocate,
you're telling
we
me
go,
this.
yeah,
You're telling me the story of what I would call a CEO or operator who is compliant or oversees sees the process. But what happens if they're too busy and they're just like all over the place?
then you're gonna fail. I'm sorry. Like, if Elon Musk can do it, like, you can do it.
So how do you
That-
not
that guy-
fail? What do you need to not fail? If you're that
Yeah.
operator CEO and you're just all over the place and you're too busy to read something and too busy to respond and to execute on your investment to every single detail, what's your backup? How do you
One thing.
if you're going to still
One
do
thing.
it, what do you do? What do you do?
There's only one thing that you need to do. And I know you know this. It's, you got to understand theory of constraints and how business works. Theory of constraints was made famous by this guy, Eliyahu Goldratt. He wrote the book called The Goal. Highly recommend go and read it. If you haven't, here's the summary of theory of constraints. Every business is a pipeline. There's attention and money that goes in. You invest all that money into your people, into your product, and all your systems, and then out comes profit. Your one job as the owner operator is to know right now, today, what is the number one constraint, the one bottleneck, the one bottleneck in your business. Because there's probably a lot of problems. There's also probably a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of good things that are happening, a lot of bad things that are happening that need to be fixed. All of those things are distractions for the one thing that matters, which is what is the most important thing. And I know it seems obvious when you say it. We say, it's make the important thing the important thing. But that is the one job of the owner operator, because if you do that, if you know, I was just talking with an operator yesterday, and she was kind of wrestling through. She's like, we're throwing spaghetti at the wall. We've tried everything, and it seems like nothing is sticking. It doesn't seem like we have kind of a process for that. She's like, I just want to know, if I'm thinking that maybe I feel like we do a pretty good job on social media, but we're spending all this time trying to improve our social media, but maybe that's not the issue. Maybe the issue is actually how we engage people in conversation, like the stuff that we talk about on this show. So if she were more clear on what the bottleneck currently is, and it's always going to be changing, and that's the fun and the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is that's the art in it. That's how I see the art of okay, great, right now. And that's what Elon does so well. He can go into any of his businesses and he knows at any given point in time what the biggest problem is in the business, and he just hammers on that problem, and he gets down runway level, in the dirt, in the factory, talking with the folks, getting his hands dirty, how do we solve this problem together? And then he goes back up to the clouds to go okay, has it shifted? Is there a new bottleneck? Let me go in it and attack that. So you don't need to worry about having everything in your purview at all times. That would just be insanity making. You just need to be clear on what is the number one constraint, but you need enough focus to be able to do that. And you need numbers, and you need a good co-pilot. You need someone who can help look at this with you, because a lot of times we get lost. I'm like
a ding 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 right there.
Yeah.
That word you just said is what I feel like is the missing link, and I'm wondering if you agree. But The question was, if you're about to make that big investment in,
Yeah.
$50,000, 100 or $500,000 in your business, and you're going to hire the team to basically do it, the agency or the ads and the marketing team, the social media, like just whatever that system is, you're going to spend, let's call it $500,000 on. But as a CEO operator, you're too busy to get in the weeds and make sure that you can guarantee that you're going to fail, is what you said, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And
One thing,
and
you
I
better
thought
be damn sure it's the right problem, and then number two, you better be able to like get in the weeds while that problem is getting solved, because as soon as that team gets into motion, stuff is going to pop up, and we got to keep that train on the tracks to get that problem solved, that bottleneck removed.
And if you don't have that before you make that investment, I think you said it, co-pilot. You need to have somebody who's going to be hired 100% just to watch over that investment. Like it's your shareholder, like it's one person who makes sure, and we call it the DRI, right? The directly responsible individual to that task. And they are a revenue agent. And if you do not have that, chances are you're going to fail, right? Because you have to read the documents, you have to read and understand, you need to stay on the measurements. I mean, I've been in that problem my entire life, like I'm not saying that everybody's perfect, but if you don't have somebody to oversee the investment, you will fail. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the investment of the money, it's the investment of the time. And are we focused on the right problem? Because like I know I've done it in my business 2 years ago. No, not 2 years ago. It was last year. Well, no, I'm lost in the sun. We're early in the year. It was 2024.
Was it
We'll
pre-revenue? Pre-revenue.
It was pre-revenue. First 6 months of
when you're
2024.
back in the MER class.
Yeah.
Brr.
I spent the first half of 2024 on the wrong problem, something that I thought was the constraint. And yeah, there was money that was outlaid, but there was money that was outlaid because it's like there's payroll and stuff that just happens every month anyway. But to me, the bigger cost was the 6 months that we lost. Now, we learned some lessons along the way of like, okay, this is how we don't want to do things. And next time we're going to be a lot more clear before we actually commit to a strategy. I only share this because I know it and I've been there. And I've also seen the other side of it where in the business before this, with the agency that I've shared, we got really clear on that probably about like 3 years in on the biggest problem we wanted to solve and what our business model was. And we like skyrocketed because of it. Like once we had that level of focus, and were there problems? Sure, there were plenty of problems. There were lots of things that we wanted to do. There were lots of, hey, we should be doing social, we should be doing this way, we should be doing events, or we should be doing these things. But we were able to like be okay with not doing all those things because we were clear on what was most important, and we stayed focused on that.
You have to stay the course and never ever try to change your brand in the middle of a campaign.
Yeah. Is that happening?
It's the brand that's not working. I'm like,
oh man,
no more coffee for you, sir.
No, yeah, we didn't pull the e-brake on that one. Hold on to the little leather straps. Oh man!
On our next podcast, we will be talking about e-brakes in business. Do you need one, and how do you pull it? When is the right time?
When is the time to pull?
What are the red flags from those vendors these days?
Yeah.
You ask them, what's your definition of MER? They'll be like, fired.
Fired. No, but man, it's a great conversation. I think the question of, because I love hypotheticals, they allow us to kind of get outside of our business and go like, okay, how would I approach it if I knew what I knew now, going back to the beginning of 2024, what would I do differently? When I had that $300K to invest in the business and it didn't go the way I want, like what would I do differently? And I think it's important to know, again, you study theory of constraints, because at any point in time, there might be a lot of things, a lot of opportunities in your business, but there's only one that is the most important. It, like mathematically, logically, like the nerd in me speaking, like literally there can't be more than one. You can't have more than one priority. The word priority means like most important. It's at the top of the stack. Now there might be a very close second, but there is one that's at the top. And I know that when I have focus, and when you can focus with a level of intensity, it allows you then to go find the right partners, hold those partners accountable, come up with good strategy, not allow yourself to get distracted by shiny objects, and then you can actually implement and then take that investment, that 500K, and based on whatever you decided is the measure of success on that investment, now you actually have a way to measure that, track that, and then ladder up to the next bigger problem so that you can keep solving bigger and better problems, serving more and more people, and get that graph going up and to the right, this way. I don't know, this way.
Yeah, and I think I would close to this point is that if you're going to make an investment over 50, 100K, 500K, like just make sure you know exactly what your goal is and how you're going to measure success, right? Like is it you need 4x, you need 10x, but like give me a budget and give me an outcome. If you don't have those two things, then you're asking for an old way RFP or agency model and you're going to fail. You know, you're looking
100%.
for some slick tongue salesperson to like walk you through the journeyland, my friend. And I'll tell you, it's filled with sand and dryness and grumpy people.
Snake oil.
Snake oils. All right. There we go.
All right, brother, I think that's the pod.